Yes.
Everybody got this thing then? Are we live?
Yeah, we're live.
All right, it's time to dance. 7:05, call to order. Peter and I are gonna get your pens ready, agenda changes. Okay, so there's our two. So, okay, I don't have to want to bring out the gavel and smack people. There you go. Did I actually say that? I hope not. Okay. All right. Okay. Changes to the, okay, call to order, 7:06-ish. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda, and we'll make the changes? Okay, the following changes are what I would recommend is that we will move the tree delegation, the tree committee recommendation from currently 8D1. We will make that item number 5. And then everything else will flow through. Going through the flow through for what you have as B for what is the new 6, which is the strategy session. If you could insert draft minutes after meeting on the second to last line. Adding another section C, which will be the Curly Stewart Memorial Trust Fund Award Committee meeting.
Draft minutes.
Of January 7th, and that the, hands up if you know what this stands for, CSM, not you, FTA committee meeting draft minutes of Jan 7, be Curly Stewart Memorial Trust Fund.
You just got that.
Received for information, thank you. Okay, it took me only 3 times to figure it out. Okay, so that's the changes on the first page. Flipping over to the second pages. Under the mayor, who had for none, there'll be 3 things. There'll be the IC composition, which is 1. Number 2 is a $100 cost expenditure council should be aware of. And 3 is TransLink events today. And then on committees, it is going to be, again, the mystery acronym, which would be the TFA committee discussion, information in draft minutes. And happily, that would be the end of that, unless anybody has any other agenda changes.
Just
Councillor Barmayer, you're first up.
Just under unfinished business, if we can add the TV location survey.
Okay, so then I'll make that B, EV station. Councillor Abbott, I saw your hand.
Sorry, there was 2 references to the Curly Stewart Committee. The what?
well, first is simply the minutes are being at the beginning
Yeah.
presented for information,
Okay.
and then
The discussion.
if there's a discussion, I presume it goes later.
I see you're loaded for bear, Councillor Abbott. You got lots of stickies. Never a good sign for a 9 o'clock finish. Okay, anybody else? Any other changes?
Just
Oh,
agree with me, but fast.
CAO?
Just additional ground for closing under C, 91C, labor relations and employee relations.
Employee, and what was the front?
Labor and employee relations.
Employee relations, thank you. All right, any other changes? Last chance, going, gone. Can I have a motion? Yes, second, all in favor, done, thank you. Public delegation, Mr. Kennedy, you're up.
You want me to sit or stand?
The podium is fine. We can lean, we don't see
I've never
you.
been in a podium.
Well, not in a good way, I'm sure. There you go.
Okay, so firstly, thanks for
Okay.
having me here. But anyway, I wish Heather was here, my wife. Sad, she passed away. And, she knows all about this, just so you know. She was alive during Charlie's notices and wanted to remove tops of trees, okay? No big deal, but you know, when I saw the pictures of what was going to happen, and you have all the emails of the pictures, I sent them to everybody, of what I'm going to talk about, you have everything. there's actually like 5 trees, and they became a shrub that's about 25 feet high, right behind the telephone, or the hydro pole. I'm the only one affected, just so you know. I am the affected neighbor, as per your tree guys. That this is gonna ruin our privacy if this happens. 1,000%. Cheryl, I don't know if you all know who she is, she's next door, okay, to Charlie. And I don't have any problem with anybody. I'm a good neighbor, I know we don't talk to anybody, it's not a big deal, okay? It's run down, but that's just the way it goes. She's been there forever, Cheryl. She's an old hot tub and a balcony and all that. I don't see it with this, what's up there right now. I see the end of her house, and everything's good. We put a $60,000 almost living room. We have a 4-car garage, two from Rob Simpson, you know, this Corvette in it. There's no money in carports. We knocked the wall down with Dave Butler, came up a few years ago. Loves him, and Heather was like, get rid of it, I want a living room. 4 beautiful windows, big, looking up the mountain, like over Charlie and over Cheryl and all that. Fireplace, hardwood floors, everything, electrical, everything we knew. It was a, you know, an up-down garage. Beautiful, and there's pictures again for that. Now she'll be looking right into our living room and our 2 bedrooms above us that look up the mountain. We look over the ocean. It's a big house, beautiful home. We put a pool in, we spent lots of money here, believe me. Full-time gardeners for, you know, 8 months of the year, everything. Anyway, I can't believe that you can lose your privacy on municipal property for somebody to get, and Charlie's house is up here, where these are around here, so she has the ocean view, because they put a little patio area with some wood and some chairs off to the side of her house. And I guess they put this happening a while ago and whatever and all that. I want it knocked down. No, we'll just knock it down a bit more. BC Hydro was there, and they never do this because my brother-in-law, Heather's brother, is the senior lawyer for BC Hydro. Sent him the pictures. He goes, oh, they normally don't talk, but they moved it down about 4 feet and trimmed it for the wind yaw that comes down from the mountain, because we're the last hope for wind to hit power lines. On another note, that's why they topped it. It's been pruned and topped a few months ago, and that's recognized by them and all that. And I said, any more, and I'm looking at her house to the right of you. They didn't care. I had 3 minutes at the end of half an hour. 95% was with them. I didn't go up on her property to Charlie's. Check, down. Oh, well, whatever. It's only about 5 or 6 or 7 feet. You know, it's to this line down here. And I said, no, I'm not looking at a house. There's no way. I'm just going to try to be normal here, but I'll tell you something. I'm a real estate investor, and this is my last house. We love it here. We moved from West Van here 6 years. Love our house, love everything. View is everything, granted. We're losing big time. We're the 99% losers. Charlie's the 1,000% winner for maybe 5% more view of the bottom of the ocean from her house. It's a huge grade. It's 75 feet probably to come down. Anyway, nobody wants to lose their privacy, and I can assure you that any one of you would not want to look at another house, come into your view, and look in their kitchen. Let's put it that way. Because somebody wants a little better view of the ocean. If it's on her property, I have no qualms. That's the way it goes. This is not on her property, and it's been topped and trimmed. No one walked up to Cheryl's place to have a view of what's going to happen when this thing comes down 5 or 6 feet. But it's going to ruin our lives. And Heather was devastated when she even knew that this was going to possibly happen. This is not a strata corporation, and we didn't buy this house and spend 300 grand on a new swimming pool, everything a few years ago, everything, and take our beautiful place to be exposed from another house, okay? So, anyway, I wouldn't ask or expect anyone to lose their privacy for a better view, for topping or removing any trees, Okay, so,
Thank you very much,
That's about
Mr.
it.
Kennedy. We have a copy of your statement. Thank you very much.
okay. Thank you very much,
I think
honestly.
there's a picture of what we're talking about behind me. I have a couple more. If anybody wants to look at it, I can show some that I'm not sure where they are in this, but that's, we get an idea. I can scroll around too. I'm going to hand this, I am theoretically one of the affected neighbors, although I am distant from this issue. As of the four main people, I would concur with Mr. Kennedy. The three main people are Mr. Kennedy, the Bradburys, and Ms. McKelvey. And with that, I'm going to hand this over to Councillor Bain to act as chair for this portion, and we will go to the, no?
I'm just gonna say the Dudleys as well.
Dudley's two, yes. In there, yes, okay. Councillor Bain, you have the ball, and this is,
Okay, so we're
Before-
going straight to the tree.
we're going straight to the tree.
Tree committee, okay.
Sorry, Mayor. Are you suggesting that you're not going to participate or vote in this and recusing yourself, or you just because you're
I've been advised I'm unable to recuse.
So I don't see that Mayor McLaughlin has a conflict of interest, either pecuniary or non-pecuniary, notwithstanding that he is a next-door neighbor of the applicant. His property is situated in such a way that the trees in question cannot even be seen from his property and impact him in no way whatsoever. He was canvassed as an affected owner under the bylaw because he is a next door neighbor, but I can't see that it impacts him in any way. And, you know, notwithstanding his suggestion that perhaps it would be appropriate to exclude himself under conflict provisions, I suggested that I didn't really see that he had one. Ultimately, the question of whether or not one has a conflict is up to the elected official, but those were my thoughts that I conveyed to Mayor McLaughlin.
So I just understand that you'd rather not chair the discussion, that's why.
This piece, correct.
Okay. Okay, so we got the tree committee report in front of us, and presuming everybody's had a good look at it. My take from it here is the reading from here, point A, as requested, the applicant is permitted to trim and level off the 4 firs mentioned in the application. Tree lines should be no further than the second wire down, the top wire being number 1. The applicant must clean up and remove all associated debris. B, dogwood mentioned in the application should be removed, topping not permitted. The applicant must clean up and remove associated debris. So, do we have any comments or on it from the council?
I'll be honest, I was trying to catch up to which page you were on.
Page 71, Neville?
Okay, I've got it now. Recommended. So we just be clear, the tree committee's recommendation was to grant all the requests?
Yeah, they've got 2 requests here, A and B under the tree application number 98. One question I'm kind of curious about is, are these photos here that we're given, are they before or after Hydro came and did some?
These are before Hydro came along. So this was at the time that the applicant submitted the application. So you can see on page 75 of the materials that this, as I say, was before. The dotted line just above the red line. So the red line is pretty much in line with the second set of wires. You can see that there's a top wire several feet above. So it's pretty much in line with the second set of wires, the top wire of the second set. The dotted line would be the Dudleys, that you can't see their house because of the trees have grown up. And I think that, so from the applicant's perspective, she didn't want to have the tree removed because that was something that was brought up by Public Works as an alternative. and didn't want to have the tree removed because then she would be looking into Dudley's kitchen from her deck. And this is taken from the perspective of her deck. So you can see that from her deck, at present, or at the time of the application, she had virtually no view with the trees, as you can see in the photo. Sorry, can you
Okay.
go back to that photo that you
Yeah.
had up there a second ago?
Yep, just a second. Nope, sorry, wrong one. Nope, sorry. Not quite, I think I'm down to the last one, sorry. Here we go.
Okay,
I can keep
so-
scrolling.
No, so stop right there.
Okay,
So this is after Hydro has come along and topped the trees. So you can see that they are directly in the center of the shot. And they're topped currently just above, a couple of feet above that middle wire, which is the one, I believe, that is on page 75 of the application. If you scroll down to the next photo, I
Sorry,
forget
just
whether
before you
that
get past
was...
the pin, sorry, and the dogwood in question, is that behind?
The dogwood is
here.
somewhere in there, and
It's dead.
it's to be removed completely. I think if everyone's
is
concerned.
this what you're looking for, Peter?
Yeah, that's a better close-up. So that shows that per the application, as I understand it, the further cutting requested by the applicant would see that current cut taken down to the level of the top wire in this photo, which is the middle wire. There's another one that's several feet above. So when you look at the photo that was in the application.
This
I'm gonna walk
might
up to the screen.
do it right here.
Yeah, that's
There you go.
all.
Yeah.
There it
We're
is.
gonna cut
Yeah.
it from here to here?
Yeah, I think that's what's left. I think that in the application, it might be that it's just slightly below that next line, but it's roughly at that line. So I think it's a question of about 2 or 3 feet. Was in my, I had a telephone conversation with the chair of the tree committee just to get clarity on this, and that was his sense of it was another 2 or 3 feet that would take it to the applicant's cut line. And so I don't think anybody who was canvassed on this application wants to see the trees removed. So removal was out of the question. They've been previously topped, so under our current policies, could be topped again, subject to the health of the tree or trees. So yeah, what's left is question of, is that sufficient or insufficient? I don't know what that looks like from the applicant's deck at this point in comparison to when she put in the application, unfortunately. But the tree committee visited the site for the purposes of the application
They
with
visited the
this.
site before BC Hydro did their trimming?
Pardon me?
They visited the site before
No.
BC Hydro did their trimming or after?
No, after. So they visited at this point. This is what it looked like when the tree committee visited. And as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, Bruce, but as I understand it, the tree committee did go stand
They took 3 feet off it.
on,
To what, to that, you see that yaw, yeah, that top on the thing? They took it down 3 feet.
okay,
And some of them there were branches going up and stuff too, but they leveled it for a wind yaw to come down the mountain. They
So-
don't want it to hit the wires.
the tree committee stood on Mr. Kennedy's front driveway by his front door and looked at this perspective as well, as whatever else at the time of the site. I think, they did actually go on the
One
deck
thing,
as
they didn't
well.
talk to me more than 3 minutes, 40 minutes, they were there. They never looked up, nobody went up, nobody did anything, they said, see you later, that was it. They went to Charlie's, never Cheryl's, never walked up to Cheryl's driveway even, nothing. They did see it's gonna be exposed, well, it's 5 or 6 feet. Not about lines and where and all that, it was a very, okay, well, we gotta go to our next appointment. And this is gonna devastate our living room and our house, everything, to look
Okay.
at Cheryl's drapes.
Thanks for that.
Okay, that's it, I'm done.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I guess the point we have before us now is the picture here is no longer in play. We've got a certain degree of dropping of the level, so the question there is, do we want to go with the tree committee or do we agree with it? But there doesn't seem to be a dispute on point B about the dogwood, correct? Everybody is okay with the dogwood going?
As I understand it, I don't think there's any opposition to cutting out the dogwood.
Okay.
Except the dogwoods are protected trees and not tree bark, no? But the other city-
Instead,
Instead,
yeah.
Okay. Pardon me. So, I'm not familiar with the area enough, so I'm thinking from the proponent's point of view, is that enough? Or she still
Well,
wants
she
to
was
come back?
canvassed after Hydro had come along and talked and asked whether that was sufficient and if she wanted to discontinue her application, and she said no.
no, she not, and she wanted to
So
continue.
the tree committee carried on and set up an appointment and paid a site visit and had a meeting and made the recommendation they did. One possibility that's occurred to me now is that the council doesn't have the benefit of seeing what is the view now compared to this photo in the application.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that it's almost at the red line. If you look at the wires and you look at that view, she really has nothing left to cut.
What I was going to suggest
So
was
it's getting a little greedy in my eyes.
perhaps council might want to entertain postponing consideration of this application until such time as we can return next meeting with a photo taken as things presently stand from the deck, in the same shot, or,
The tree committee looked at that and said that we had another 3 feet to go. Did they agree?
the tree committee said, agreed with the application to take it to the applicant's
Line.
red line.
Councillor Ballmeyer thinks they're there already, is that?
That's what I'm saying. I think they're there already, and this is,
Well, I think the
this
tree
is
committee's saying,
no longer really relevant to this piece of.
The tree committee is saying that.
tree committee's saying there's another 2 or 3 feet to go, basically.
But has the tree committee looked at it from the property?
Yeah, they went on the
Oh, they did.
property.
So for 2 or 3 feet, we're gonna ignore the other neighbor's obvious concern around privacy. That's just a question.
I mean, you could, if you're gonna look at the view as it stands now from the applicant's balcony, then you should look at the view, my opinion, from the neighbors' bedrooms and living room, and see what an impact it would make. You know, get photos from both, so you can make an informed decision.
No, you had a comment?
A couple of questions and then a comment. The bottom of the application is someone written, it's like in a different hand. We no longer allow tree topping that causes stress and disease to trees. Who wrote that?
That's Garth Spring,
It's Scott?
yeah. He's,
What's the basis for that statement there? That tree bylaw doesn't do the topping.
Well, there was policy from council last year, or the year before, that essentially agreed that topping of trees is
It's not best practice.
to be discouraged.
Discuss.
It's not good arborist practice. However, where trees have previously been topped, it can be considered. So that's more or less where we sit from a policy perspective.
That's a very definitive statement, it's not.
no,
100% true.
Garth's horticulture training flies against stopping, so that's his take.
I was gonna say to CAO's point, if a tree has been topped before, it becomes more dangerous so that you really have to continue. Pardon me, have to continue. Sorry, my voice is
What do you
going.
mean? Which these trees are, they are topped before.
Right.
Yeah, and it wasn't all that long ago So they do grow quickly. And yeah, it's a question of whether or not council wants to entertain essentially what amounts to probably a preemptive 2 or 3 feet that the applicant is seeking to match the original application, given the speed at which they're gonna grow. She's probably gonna be back in 2 or 3 years in any event, trying to, having to apply for it again, so.
I think the public works manager's point has value of sort of another site visit, looking from all angles and reconsider. Is that too much of a process?
My personal opinion is we have a tree committee that do exactly what you're describing. They bring a recommendation, and which we typically bless. Not the right term, I guess, but we typically accept, unless we feel they got something wrong or didn't follow the procedure or whatever. So I'm not sure that council members going out there that we suggest us having a look and seeing if we agree with them.
I don't think that was suggesting council, I think that the
Tree committee
goes-
go back. Instruct the chief to go back again.
Yeah, and ask them to look at it from every perspective, because I would say that it doesn't look like it has been done here, and if there's 2 vocally affected neighbors, then they deserve the same amount of attention as the applicant. It is on public land, so
Well,
I think Nye has a great suggestion.
correct me if I'm wrong, Bruce, but the tree committee, I think, stood on the driveway by the front door of Mr. Kennedy's house, which is in front of his living room, to look at that perspective.
No, I took the pic, no, they didn't.
No, I know they didn't take the picture.
No,
but
they
when
didn't
were,
come to my door or anything.
oh, I
No,
thought that
they're
when
on
they
the
were there, they,
street.
okay, well,
By the
that's why I
front of my
said correct me if
driveway,
I'm
we gotta
wrong.
go, see you, Bruce.
Okay, I thought that they also stood on your driveway.
No, well, yeah,
Okay.
but for this talking to each other. Okay, where are we going next? Seriously, I had 3 minutes. I said, are you looking? No, well, anyway, yeah, whatever. And by the way, where Hydro cut it, they cut it to where it was previously topped years ago. They can't cut below a cut line. I do my hedges, they're massive. I don't cut below a previously cut. Then you're stressing the entire structure, yes, of trees or anything. That's the minimum. That was done 3 years ago, and they cut it down to that and left. For free.
Okay, it seems to me we have 2 choices then. One would be to accept the tree committee's recommendation as it is, or the second option is ask the tree committee to revisit the site and look at the various angles according to what the public works manager has suggested. Any thoughts on that?
I agree a second site, because I think the tree committee is there to address all the neighbors' concerns, and there's clearly one neighbor whose concerns haven't been, who's here tonight, and then a third that
Cheryl
hasn't been spoken to as well,
She feels very strongly about this.
so.
Well, she did submit her written comments, but didn't appear at the meeting.
Yeah, in our paperwork, she's got a question mark. She didn't say yes or no. So,
I'm fairly sure it's no.
fair enough.
I'll just say one quick thing, 'cause I'm gonna leave in a minute, because this is going nowhere quick. But you know what, I'll permit 1 foot. Hydro doesn't want the thing down so that the wires are exposed and the power line, okay? They don't want the power line exposed. That's the top of the mountain. We're at the very top, where Ron lives, we live, right? And there's tons of windstorms. That's why they keep it, so it blocks coming down to hit their lines, so that we don't have power outages. It's cut to the level, I'll go 1 foot, and it's cut down. They already cut it down from when she applied for it. It was only done a few months ago. Recently cut down and topped. 1 foot, and I'm good. And I'm sure she will call you in 3 years, because it's gonna grow back up. It's a completely healthy 5 or 6 trees in there. And I will go with that, and we're done. And you know what, she'll call you and apply again, because it's gonna grow like a hedge. It's gonna come up and out. So that's my offer to you guys, if you wanna just settle this. I don't wanna keep coming back here, man. My wife just passed away a few months ago. I'm done with this. Her living room, I'm sick of this, honestly. This is horrible for me to even be here. To try to defend my privacy from my house and got somebody looking. They don't wanna look into my house, I don't wanna look into theirs. That's what this is all about. Not about where the stress level is and all that. Your tree committee are great guys, I don't care, but you know, they're not experts on everything. This is my life. 24 hours a day I look, and we're happy. We're happy living here.
Okay, we get that.
That's it, you know.
So we got,
1 foot, and there, you know what, that's giving her, and believe me, her house is way above that tree. This is not in blocking her view. She's 30 feet higher than that.
okay, so we have 3 options then. Option 3 would be take another foot off and be done with it, along with the other criteria in it. So, council's preference, first, second, or third choice?
Well, if this puts it to rest to give her another foot, yeah, I guess that would be a reasonable option.
I would agree.
I have a problem sitting at a table here, hearing one side of view and overriding a tree committee's decision, which is based on a site visit. It sounds like they didn't speak to everyone, and maybe that's a flaw. Maybe you should ask them to go back. But I don't dispute what we've been told, but I just don't know that I should be sitting here and overriding the tree committee's decision. It's typically not what the council does, and that's what they're in place for. So.
Yeah, it's a difficult spot, but I think the appeal to council is always an option, so I don't think we're asking for anything inappropriate.
It's totally in line.
I'm concerned about the tree committee, and I don't want to get in the habit of overruling the decisions. But I think option 3 is a compromise, and would settle it once and for all for the next few years anyhow.
Then why don't you put the motion forward?
With no objections, I move we agree to option 3, bringing the trees down for another foot, and including in that is the removal of the dogwood, as mentioned as B in the application.
Is there a seconder?
All those in favor?
Discussion?
Oh, sorry. Any further discussion?
What do you say?
Better vote before my voice is gone. In favor?
Call the motion. Good. I abstain, and I understand what that means.
Yeah.
1 foot.
Motion.
Sorry?
1 foot.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. It was squirmy time for me to relinquish the chair, Councillor Bain, but thank you.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
I appreciate it, honestly.
All right, thank you,
My
Mr.
little
Kennedy.
dog, thank you too.
Thank you very much. Have a
Point of
pleasant
order, I
evening.
didn't vote in favour.
All right, Mr. Kennedy, you need to go so I can work these guys.
I
All
know. Thanks
right,
very much for your time. everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
all right,
Oh, I thought I asked if
councillors.
you were against.
No, I wasn't asked. No.
Sorry.
How's it been recorded? I didn't vote. How was it recorded? I wasn't voting in favour. That's what you recorded, but I wasn't asked.
If you didn't, if you
If you didn't, you
I didn't
abstained.
abstain.
If you didn't say anything, if you didn't.
We said all in favour. There was 3 hands. I was waiting for anyone against, but the question wasn't asked, and everyone moved on.
My mistake.
Okay, so it's just a point. It's fine. I was going to say no, so it's fine. Just record it that way.
All right.
Still
I
3-1.
think we can take it.
I have it recorded as only Mayor McLaughlin having abstained. Is that
Yes.
how, are you comfortable with that?
No, Mary Block was staying, and I was opposed.
And the chair forgot to ask.
Okay.
Okay, done. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Councillor Revich.
Take your chair and run.
Actually, let's use Councillor Abbott as an example. I think we need to defend our own turf here too. So speak up next time too. And rookie chair, what can you say? Thank you. Okay, thank you all on that one. Okay, so we're back on the agenda, which is a review and approval of the minutes of the prior meetings, which are on page 5, and we need to speed this up. I found these were fine, in every way. And then what I did, I'm not going to put it as part of unfinished business, but I was going to do a link for the alert system in the next village update, which I've crafted already, so it's on my thing, so I'm not carrying it forward. But other than that, I found those minutes acceptable. Any changes, additions, deletions? Yes, Councillor Abbott? Page.
Page 7. I think this is on the council meeting schedule. I think the main point that I put forward was, I believe that residents come to expect the first and third, and I thought it was important to keep that. Could we have that bullet added?
Could you quote what you like?
Suggestion that residents expected meetings on the first and third Tuesdays, and I thought it was important to keep it.
Good, you got that, Carl?
Sorry, isn't that already the second bullet?
No.
A suggestion to maintain the current schedule of holding council meetings on the first and third Tuesdays of each month and to hold special council meetings as required.
True, okay, we could add to that, as residents expected these dates, and I believe that was important for, just leave it, I believe that's.
Sorry, as residents expect.
As residents expect meetings to be held.
Next meetings on those dates. I think I made the point that they can know where they can come, they know we can find us in the chamber without having to look at updates.
Okay. Any other amendments, Councillor Abbott? Councillor C, you're good?
No.
All right, you fine with that change, CAO?
Yeah.
Yep, good. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes as amended? Thank you. Second, good. All in favor? Yes, done. Moving to the B, which is, again, as I said in the changes, the draft minutes of 2526, which were considerably lengthier. And because of the breadth of them, I didn't really have any sticking points myself, but I'm open to any other significant changes as anybody sees them.
I have one, page 18,
Thank you.
the discussion on EACs and statement end, creating a bigger tax base is preferable over increasing taxes payable.
Where are you on the page, sorry?
Page 18.
Whereabouts?
Middle, I,
Second paragraph.
up the top.
Oh, second paragraph?
Yeah, second paragraph, sorry.
And sorry, what are you saying?
The last statement, creating a bigger tax base is preferable over increasing the taxes payable. I think I disagreed. We had quite a long, lengthy discussion on that. So the way it's written is if everyone agrees with that statement. I didn't.
The whole paragraph?
No, I didn't
No,
agree
it's just
with
the statement
that
at
it's
the end.
preferable to increase our tax base.
So what if it simply said it was suggested that
Yes.
creating
Yes, or
somebody did suggest it, I know
it
that.
was suggested, yes. Or you can say it was suggested and contended by one councillor or something, just not that it was unanimously.
What would you like? Pressure's on you. What would you
So
like?
it was suggested and contested by one of the councillors.
Okay. CAO, you got the change?
I think so.
Good, thank you. Anything else? Councillor Bain, we'll come back to you, Councillor Abbott. What page?
Actually, it's on 2 pages, on 15 and 16. In reference to the water mains, under maintained and adequate infrastructure on the 1, 2, 3, 4th and 5th paragraphs, comment there are projects like AC water mains, and I know what they are, but I think for clarity for somebody reading our minutes, I don't think there's an explanation of what an AC water main is that would be helpful to include in there.
Sure. Asbestos cement.
Right. And it's again over on page 18 on the Public Works Manager. Jennifer explained that AC water mains are typical and so on and so forth.
Sorry, where is it on 18?
Dead center.
Yeah, 1, 2,
sorry.
3, 4, 5th.
On page 16, Peter?
Yeah, I was on 16, but everybody else has said 18?
My mistake, 16.
Oh, 16, I
Sorry.
got the
16,
16, yeah, yeah. okay,
16
got
dead
that.
center, the one sentence.
So can we just add asbestos and cement and in brackets behind it AC?
That'd be
And
perfect.
then
Yeah.
that it's defined for the rest of the minutes?
Are you good, Councillor Bain?
Yep.
Councillor Abbott?
No, I have a few things that I think are more discussion points and matters arising, and not corrections to the minutes.
Notice arising. Thank you, and hold that thought. And I'd seek some guidance. We're probably not going to see strategy minutes again, or CSC strategy, CSC minutes again. I'm wondering, there are two things that I had which were on page 16, which was the split list of what is deemed possible and not possible for grant funding, and also not to let the issue of the hydrant testing go away. I was wondering if we could move, with the CAO's guidance, can we move those to the active agenda versus to the CSC? As unfinished business? These two items?
That one, and well, hydrant testing ended up on the list that appears with the report later in the agenda. So that's taken care of by
Okay.
being in there.
Okay.
I think that when it comes to discussing grant funding within the context of the strategic goals and 2020 priorities, that's simple enough to raise the question as to possible versus not possible
Okay.
types of projects
Right.
for further exploration. I presume that, there will be further discussions about grant funding and capital projects through the budget process. So plenty of opportunity to talk about
All right.
those kinds of distinctions.
Thank you for your answer on both those. Should I get hit by a bus, please embody my spirit. As for the members here, I'm very concerned and interested on what we do with hydro testing this year. Hydrant testing. Okay. Any other changes? Going, gone. All in favor as amended? That's a yes all around. Unanimous. Thank you. Business arising from the minutes, and I think Councillor Abbott, you're ready to go.
Sure. Yeah, it's gonna come across. Okay, I guess maybe I'll take this one. We're going to go through later in the meeting and we're going to talk about the priorities, and I guess timelines on that we can bring up at that point.
I would think so.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, you want to shelve it till then?
Well, on the shelf, this one, which was, about when we're
Okay.
going to do something, that's fine. On the bottom of page 25, paragraph S, Council Abbott suggested the last OCP was done with a different manner and cost a fraction, suggested $100,000. So I did go and ask some people who were involved to make sure that I had that clear. Didn't get anyone who could remember the exact number, but I am correct, it was like $10,000. It was like a 10.
So you say 80?
10.
Pardon?
10,000.
10.
It was like a tenth of that. That's what people's memory. But I think it might have been Mr. Izzo that did it. I think he might have been doing some, I don't know, potentially as part of it. I don't know, but it was a fraction. Yes.
Well,
I know what current ones in other municipalities cost.
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that we had received some guidance or indication from the previous facilitator that we had at previous strategic planning sessions about the time requirements and the costs associated with doing an OCP review. And if anything, she would probably consider this to be light. But also, and I'm going to say a four-letter word that I promised myself I would never say, or not publicly, but here I am saying it. I think it would probably be more appropriate, or we'd get a better idea as to an appropriate number if we looked at what were the consultation costs for the lump. That was a pretty extensive consultation engagement process. Not everybody agreed with how it was done and so forth, but I think that that's the kind of process that we would probably look to be engaging in terms of the extent of it and the breadth and length of time and the resources that are applied to
I'll
it.
say it again, the big difference was, it was a volunteer-driven program, it was written by people that write for a living, it was, all the facilitator did was give some guidance and do a review. It was driven by volunteer committees, there were several of them, there was lots of people involved, and another person was the writer.
You know, I
So
think.
that is the suggestion I'm making.
I think Councillor Zabit's bringing me around here, because I can remember the seemingly dozens and dozens of smaller groups that fed their information into lieutenants who fed it into
One committee for each
captains.
section.
So they could have really done it quite thriftily. You know, I think you're right. At the end of the day, writing is writing, that's easy.
There was one committee for each section, there was 6 sub-chairs, one in each
I think
section.
I think he's right.
Sorry, I'm going to disagree, but that's not for me to say.
Well, no, I know what the
I
cost
think
would
that-
be if we went outside, but I think Councillor Zabit is correct when going back to the time of
That's
your.
how it was done.
I'm going to hold my tongue.
Okay, good. Having held your tongue, we're moving on. Which means that if there's no more changes, we're going to accept.
No,
There wasn't a change. There was no change
changes.
there, yeah.
No changes, this
No.
is just updates and follow-ups and
Okay.
viewpoints.
Last one, come on,
We get one more, I've got 2 flagged here.
speak quickly then.
Okay. On the top of page 27 of 106, CEO suggested that he undertake a further conversation with Metro planning staff to determine options and implications of a more long-term strategy. I wrote a village update soon after that. And the village update reads that the CEO doesn't use the word director or instructor, but basically that he was to do this, I can't remember the verb. And I felt that hadn't happened in the meeting, and the CEO told me that's what I wrote in my notes. And I asked that statement be removed, because I was asked to remove something else in the village update, and now it's recorded as suggested. So I just like to get a little bit of clarity on that, Peter. I mean, at the time, you were quite adamant that you'd be giving some sort of instruction to go do that.
So when oftentimes staff will suggest they do something, means that unless you guys say otherwise, that's what we're going to do. As well, municipal staff talk with other municipal staff, especially when they're dealing with them or having to deal with them on particular substantive issues all the time. So it's completely appropriate for me to be talking to Metro staff about a matter that requires a lot more information. I just don't understand why there would be any hesitation in having me undertake to have those conversations with Metro to obtain further information so that we can have further discussions, so that council can discuss the matter further and have further information to base those discussions upon.
I guess my question, why was it necessary that you had to state it, tell me to change my village update that I wrote and write it in there?
I can't remember what the alternative
The
was.
alternative was that you would not publish it. You had the right, it's sort of decided by this council, if there's an impasse, it doesn't go in. And I got to hear about it 12 o'clock the night before, and I didn't have much option.
I don't remember what the alternative suggested wording of the piece was, is what I'm asking. I'm sorry.
The suggestion was to take both that statement out as well as the one you asked me to request, and that I suggested about going out to get further public involvement. You said you wanted that taken out because you didn't want to give expectation, and then I suggested we should take this out as well. Anyway.
Well, this is something that I'm actively pursuing, so it's just something that's happening. because that's what staff does. It's part of my job to do this, and it was happening, and so I think that's where I was coming from at the time.
Okay, so I guess what I'm stating is, I was not happy with that situation. I was not happy with the ultimatum was, that is what you wrote in your book, was all that was needed to be said. And it's now sort of worded slightly different than it was suggested. No, I'll leave it. I wasn't comfortable with that, and I well, see next time what I've already done.
So noted.
One last question I had was, and I think I sent this in an email, but I haven't looked at emails today. There's a closed section of these, but there's no minutes in the closed section. I sent you an email on the weekend, Peter?
This evening,
On the weekend.
regarding the,
So we've got,
yeah,
there's a
yeah,
closed section, a
yeah.
study section,
yeah, it's,
but in the closed section, there's no minutes.
it's coming. And I wrote an email saying,
I-
apologies for having.
I said I didn't,
Yeah.
I went days behind on emails.
I
Okay.
said, thanks for the catch, Neville, because I missed that.
Okay,
I went days behind on emails. Okay, thank you.
all right, Councillor Abbott, you've used 5 lifetimes of time.
That's quick, everyone just.
I know. All right, thank you very much for that, and I'm being totally jocular, and I hope you're,
So,
okay, me too. Thank you very much for your changes. Can I have a motion to accept the draft minutes as amended? Thank you, seconded, all in favor, good, we're done, unanimous, thank you. And so that, I think, also okay, so that's that. The next one is and we all know what the initials stand for, the Curly Stewart Trust Fund et al.
okay.
Maybe I could put it in the next update, all right, and see if anybody knows what it means. Okay, who's chairing this piece?
This first part is just the acceptance of the minutes.
Okay,
Is that correct?
put your on table before
That's all
us.
it is.
Yes. Looks accurate to me.
It's just
No
for
one else-
information.
Okay, it's for information purposes. Okay. All right, well, let's, motion to accept for information purposes. Thank you, Councillor Abbott, seconder. Any discussion on this one? Councillor Abbott, you want 30 seconds on this to give us a skinny?
Well, that's coming up later in the agenda.
Okay, you'll do that later, thank you. Motion to accept, all in favor, done, thank you. And we move on to business arising from the minutes. And I had none other than one I spoke about. Anybody else? Okay, we're making up some time here, good, done, thank you. There is none unfinished business, I'm the lead on this one, which is the ongoing speeding sea to sky. I have a telephone call meeting with the mayor of Squamish tomorrow at 10:30. I've given her executive assistant the skinny of what we're going to talk about. She's going to post Karen with that. So I will, with that in hand, I'll be drafting 2 letters, one to Minister Farnworth and the other one to the deputy police chief person, and see if we can push both buttons. Peter, I hope to have that to you for Friday so that we can review that and move it on. Yes?
I'm just cognizant of the fact I think we're meeting with Squamish RCMP at the end of the month.
At the end of the month?
Maybe we want to just hold off on it until we speak with them and see if there's anything to add.
If council's fine with that, I mean, it can be sitting in the can waiting until we speak with Inspector Trion. So on Tuesday, I'm going to guess it's the 28th, something like that.
31st,
Today's the
somewhere in
14th,
there.
2 weeks, right? Lucked out there. Okay, so is everybody fine with that? Good, all right. So we should have action for the next council meeting. So we'll leave that on. And Councillor Abbott, you're next up, and I know you've already done this, so you're a strike. Thank you. And which brings us to Councillor Barmayer on the B part, which is the EV station. And Councillor Barmayer, you are up.
So we had an electrician fill out apply for designer for BC Hydro to kind of give us some additional possibilities at that location, and it is feasible. So we sort of got a green light from BC Hydro.
I don't think I saw that.
Yeah,
You get that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next natural step then is to get a proper survey from location so we can advance the design.
We've gone out to 3 surveying firms for
Okay.
estimates,
Cool,
and we're waiting for those costs to come in.
awesome.
Estimated time?
Hopefully by the end of this week, we'll know what the costs are and select one of the surveyors to go out and do the survey.
And we've already given you authority to do that, haven't we? So you're gonna do it before next council meeting? Odds are.
Depends on their timelines.
Yeah, it's their
Yeah.
timelines, but yeah,
Well,
hopefully.
You're gonna give them the green light. Okay, done. Councillor Barmer, you're good?
That's great, thank you.
Thank you for that, both of you, and which brings us,
Question for Councillor Varmer. In the previous meeting, we were talking about getting a professional engineer to give us some insights or some view from the electrical side. I sent you an email of someone in our office
Okay,
who's an engineer who's his largest client's BC Hydro, and he can work through that. He's a resident of the village, been there a couple of years. He's keen to give us some advice. But I assume you must have missed the email, or do we still want to?
yeah, I think when the time comes where we get to elect the new one, I think that'd be perfect.
Okay. So we did get the email.
No, I hear we're back.
All right.
I think we're still waiting.
Yeah, I saw the office and he said he hasn't heard anything.
we're good, thank you. All right, moving on to item 8B, which is the 2020 council meeting schedule, which you can find on page 31. And CIO, if you could share this before we get right to it.
So, we did go over this somewhat last time. The version that you see before you tonight, on page 32, I've added a couple of proposed changes with respect to February and March, moving them back to 1st and 3rd. And it kind of serves two purposes. One is it will result in me only missing one meeting on February 18th, because I'll be on holiday. And the other is that it ties in with the suggestion that was made by Councillor Abbott that we ought to stick with 1st and 3rd. And so my suggestion is that we do that with respect to these months. We need the meeting on February 28th for CFO Rook to bring forward budget matters. And so we will have, as a result, if this is adopted, only 1 week between the meeting of the 28th and the meeting of the 4th, but we'll deal with that.
So January 28th.
January 28th.
January 28th and February 4th.
You said February 2nd.
Yes, so you would project that's gonna be a shortish agenda?
It depends on where the report coming from the cell tower consultation comes in, whether it comes to the 28th or the 4th, but
Okay.
it'll be one or the other, I think. So we might split the load. Might be maybe the 28th is going to be more budget oriented, and the 4th might be more
Okay.
cell tower oriented, or we might just
Okay,
bring
well,
them
that's-
both on the
that's a big
28th
piece. That's good.
and have a light load on the 4th. But
Okay,
and then the rest from April onward, staff didn't have any suggestions for changes on those, and those did result in, I think those are still 1st and 3rd right through, except for, actually July is, no, okay, June is 1st and 4th, and so is July, which provides a 3-week break between meetings. The idea being that we can produce more and bring more to the meetings. And also having it later in July is helpful because August is going to be the break. And it's also suggested that we omit the first September meeting, as that's a challenge coming off the break and staff holidays and so forth. And then the fall, there was the three options. The first, A, being the normal schedule, every 2 weeks on the first and third Tuesdays. The second, B, being every 3 weeks instead of every 2 weeks. And the third being once a month, with the idea being that if an additional meeting is required, then we can add one at a special meeting. And also, as pointed out by Councillor Cunliffe last meeting, we'll need to slot strategic planning session probably between the November 17th and December 15th dates. So possibly something like December 1st could end up being our strategic planning session, or thereabouts, November 30th, December 1st.
Good, thank you very, very much. This has been around twice now, and we held off the last time as Councillor Barmeyer didn't have a chance to weigh in. So we'll get this right to it. I will put forward a motion for the staff's recommendation as is on page 32 of 106 with option C, which is the 3 dates in the fall. And if I could get a seconder on that, we'll go right to discussion. Thank you, seconder. Discussion, I'll lead on this one. My thinking here is that our year is going to be extremely front-loaded with a break in the summer, and then I think we'll be closing off stuff at the end. So I think the staff schedule as they've written here gives enough time. And again, just to remind what we want to ensure we deal with, just off the quick, is whatever we do, either way on the cell tower, the CACs, the DPCs, the Kelvin Road plant, the EV plant, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I would like it all well prepared and in good order when I see it and not rushed. Thank you. Any other comments, conversation on this? Councillor Abbott, anything? Yep.
Councillor Ball may want to go first because he wasn't here, but I can, if you want.
It's yours.
I appreciative of the changes to the 1st and 3rd for February and March, which works very well because I had a flight to South Africa on the 19th, the morning after the council meeting. I picked that date so I didn't miss the meeting, so I appreciate that. And which means I will miss the March 3rd meeting, unfortunately. I can't do the trip in less than 2 weeks. As I said, for various reasons like those plans that I've made already, I like to keep this 1st and 3rd. On the June-July sequence, where we've gone to the 1st and 4th to create 3 weeks, does it really make a difference whether you have the 3 weeks between the 2nd of June and 23rd, or if you have the 3 weeks between the 17th and the 17th of July? You still get the 3 week gap, you just get it a week later, and that way you don't have to change the 1st and 3rd. The 3 week gap would still be there, it would just be a week later. And then you haven't upsetting your schedule.
I think on the June one, it was partly for the annual report, to give us more time
Right.
to get the annual report
That's
done.
right.
Because it has to come to council before the 30th. So by having it on the 23rd, it does give us more time to get it done. I think that was the logic behind that one. So that's why we're looking for the 3 weeks then, rather than after the 23rd. We have a lot of due dates and things that have to come to council and be approved by council by the 30th, the SOFI, and so it gave us an extra work to get the SOFI and all of the June 30th reporting done.
So all of our year-end financials in the annual report.
Yeah, the year-end financials will be taken care of with the May dates, because I think it's the May 5th meeting that we're presenting the financial statements.
Okay. CAO, you want to hold firm, or do you want to think about it, or?
I think for the reasons that the CFO has just mentioned, that was, I think, our thinking with respect to doing it then, was to try and accommodate the work that we anticipate at that point in time.
I have to go to site once a week. once a month for the rest of the year starting in May. I picked those weeks. Schedules do change, and yes, I can change, but other people, one guy does a 2-week cycle, the other guy overlaps with him. I've said the overlap has to be in this week because that's when I'm available to travel. So I will miss meetings if this happens. That's all I can say. And I had a desire and a goal to not miss a council meeting, although now I'm going to miss one. If this happens, I'm going to miss.
Okay, thank you.
So did you say in May then?
Starting in May, I have to go to site once a month
I see.
for the rest of the year, till the end of the summer.
Um,
And I plan to cycle that, because everyone has a cycle. I plan to make the cycle so that I could fit in with a regular schedule.
However this goes, Councillor Abbott, just for the future, because we've got 2 more within our term how we're going to do this. If the recommended calendar came forward in December, would that suit you better?
It did.
Or sooner than that? Or is that just the way your work continues in perpetuity?
Yeah, I mean,
The calendar does change annually, like every,
the calendar changes every annual, but
okay.
I get everyone working on a cycle.
Okay,
So I
that
try to
doesn't change.
cycle changes. I mean, I can't ask some guy to work an extra week.
Yeah.
He has to go home, he's timed out, there's
Okay.
next regulations around it. So that's what I was trying to do.
All right, thank you very much. All right, any further discussion?
I mean, the best laid plan's gonna change, so I'm happy with these dates, it's fine.
All right, so I don't believe there was any changes to my motion. Carol,
That's right.
correct? Thank you. All right, it looks like we're going to inconvenience Councillor Abbott. All in favor? Okay, thank you.
Opposed.
Opposed? Thank you. All right. CAO, you are up again on the strategic planning, which is on page 35. And I was particularly pleased with the bursts of color throughout your documentation.
So this is just an information report that essentially provides council with a version, a cleaned up version of the 2020 goals and priorities from the materials that were considered at the CSC in November. So they're all set out in the blue tables that you're familiar with. And I've tried to incorporate everything, and hopefully I didn't miss anything. And then as well, I plunked all of those things into an updated version of the poster, which is pretty tight reading in an 8.5 by 11 format, but would be a little easier on the eyes in a 17 by 11. And again, that just reflects the cleaned up blue tables. Some of the wording might be slightly different because I've tried to condense it to fit on this poster. Tried to summarize it as best I could. Following that, you've got your top 10 lists that were submitted by each of the councillors, color-coded, and then following that is the clean list by category and overall on page 49. So it's all fairly self-explanatory. I've attached as well the lists that were received from each of you, and because I hesitated a little bit, but decided that there was a fair bit of expansion upon ideas that weren't fully captured by simply having a table with an X and a color on it, and this really fleshes out each of your thoughts on the matters in many circumstances. So yeah, that's about it. no recommendations flowing out.
Thank you
of
very
this.
much. So this will be receiving, I suggest we put 5 minutes to any discussion on this. And I'll come up last on this one. Councillor Bain will go clockwise.
Hey, yeah, thanks for your last comment. When I looked at your chart here, I thought, it's all very interesting, and I don't want to minimize it or anything, it's a lot of work. But it was sort of really the first pass of priorities. And I found, when you look at the lists each one of us submit, well, I just, for myself, will speak, that some of the things I put on there after I hear the other councillors' opinion, I would tend to lean to supporting what they were saying on a few items and drop some of mine. So this is what I think of as sort of the first pass, but I think for our due diligence, we need to incorporate something of the multiple passes as the discussions go on. Because I think it's sort of fluid at this point. So maybe in the fall we can discuss it some more. I don't know what the plans for that is. The only other comment I had was, one of the objections we had to prior years of the chart was it was too busy. And we've got an awful lot of text in here. And I think for strategic goals, I had a look at it, and I think we've got the first part under each colored heading are the strategies, and I would submit that the next paragraph or so is the tactics. So we could clean it up by taking the tactics out of the poster and put them somewhere else. And that way it would make it an easier read for residents should they see it on the wall.
Yeah, I think they're actually goals, as they basically reflect, if you look in the blue table under the left-hand column, you'll find each one of those things as the goals. And then, so they are there in the blue table as part of the full report, and maybe don't need to be in the poster, as you're suggesting, just leaving the priorities for the year under each heading. That may create a bit more space and might even enable me to put a bit of air in between the lines so that it's a little easier. And
For
as
the
well,
first time ever.
I would bring it back with 11 by 17 as well. Apologies, I actually thought about that at one point and then failed to remember to do that, so not Shauna's fault.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. Councillor Cliff?
Well, I like the color code. And I just wanted to comment, being the one of 5 that wants to improve transit, I still do, and I have to say, over the holidays, out of the conversations that I had with my neighbors, can we not ask them to do a better job of matching up the 257 and the 262? I know you've said this in the past, but these angry people, because it's not like you miss a bus and you have to wait 20 minutes. You miss a bus and you have to wait an hour in the dark, in the winter, and that's just, what are we paying for? So just saying.
Well, you can morph yourself and sit on my shoulder when I meet with the executive on the 30th.
I'll send you a text.
That'd be just great. So that's the morning of the 30th.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
believe there was some angry people this morning.
Well,
Yes, I saw that as
I'll be talking about that in a minute. I've got that covered.
Okay.
Councillor Abbott, you're next up.
I'm a spreadsheet and tables guy, so this works for me. I will admit I didn't necessarily read the poster, because the information was elsewhere in a better format for me.
The poster is the public persona.
It's so good. The poster is being shared, is going to go out to the public at a point.
It's
Or
the
is it
driving
because of
document.
just the fact it's
Yeah.
attached to the minutes.
If council's good with the content, then I would work on trying to improve the format.
And then they would present it to a village update as outcome.
It would be a link in the village update, so here's a,
So in
actually
that case, I agree with Councillor Bain, we should try shorten it up and clean it up.
Staff also use the poster, and it's posted around offices and through the building, so.
It's on our website as well, isn't it?
I thought you'd be a tables guy.
But we
Poster.
would link to the whole, I suggest we would link to the whole document,
Yeah.
including the poster, but the poster tends to be a quick go-to, as Mr. Jaffers suggested.
I didn't think, as Councillor Bain said, about sort of a process of reviewing and re-ranking. I actually think it's not a bad idea. Not sure it should wait till the fall. But prior to that suggestion, I did, if we got to motivate to move one up a peg or argue that one should be higher ranked, the emergency planning stuff for me, I think only myself and Councillor Bain actually voted for it, but I doubt that there's anyone that doesn't think it's really important, and I think it needs to, we should keep the focus on that if we do this, reviewing others' comments. This is just a two. Other than that,
Good, thank you. Councillor Brummer?
Yeah, I like the tables, I like how organized it is, it's a very systematic way of looking at these things, which I appreciate. Councillor kind of touched on it with her passion, which is the piece that's missing from the tables. And I really think that's kind of where the bun fight starts in my mind, is how driven we are behind each one of these priorities, because they'll be different for each one of us. So we can't lose track of that. That's what we're here to do, to discuss and fight for our respective goals and priorities, right? So I don't think we want to over systematically prioritize this list. I do think we still need to keep these in mind, that we have some priority discussion about them and stuff like that. Otherwise, I think the poster could be a little punchier, it's a little busy, but otherwise it's nice.
Thank you very much, and I will close, and I had the same views except for the TransLink piece, which trust me, I hear about it every day, Councillor Cunliffe, and they do know my home phone number. I think two pieces. One, I'm, as Councillor Abbott and Councillor Bain have said, I looked at this and I saw how my hands were up, hands were down. I'm not sure what bean I was eating that day, but I'm sure it would have shifted some of the categories now. And that's just because 2 months later, things are more or less important. I think in my very brief chat with the CAO this afternoon, on page 49 of 106, which is the, I know we all love color for a change, and the spacing is attractive. The right-hand side, which is the overall, if you look at what the kind of consensus top three colors were, I would be ecstatic if we did all those things this year. I really would be. And so I don't necessarily need to see that on the piece that the public gets to see, but I think this is something, and we probably will build it into the CAO's PMR, that we're on track with these, because I think unless, maybe the Blues might be up, and, on the beach park, we're either going to win this or lose it, and, we're going to sell the property or we're not. So a bunch of it's important, but it's busy work. So I think all this work is before the staff all of the time. So I think that, I think we're on the right track on a bunch of stuff. I think the piece that I would like the CAO to do is, and again, thank you for the great job in this, is just to clean it up for public consumption more than our consumption. Anybody last word? Nope. Can I have a motion to accept the report? Thank you. Second, all in favor? Good, we're done. Thank you. Next up is, let's get back into the right page here. Okay, everybody take a 2-minute break here to get strong. The CAO on page 57, and this is the Metro wood burning bylaw. I'll warm this up for him. He and I have been extensively involved in this for a very long time, and as of now, we are in the public eye with Metro. So what you're about to say in the next half hour is very important to what's going to happen on Friday afternoon when I'm at the Climate Action Committee. Mr. DeJong?
Just to that point, if there are matters which pertain to particular thoughts or comments about either events that took place or ideas about how they ought to take place going forward, we might want to consider, or please do think about whether or not it would be prudent or proper, appropriate, etc., to move to a closed meeting to discuss any particular matters that may be sensitive or involve people as opposed to ideas and overall concepts. So with that preface, the report before you really sort of encapsulates where we've come, has a copy of the Metro report with respect to the proposed bylaw. It's pointed out in this report that that there doesn't seem to have been much, if anything, in the way of discussion about the actual costs of retrofitting wood-burning appliances in pre-existing homes.
Peter, sorry,
Sorry?
could I interrupt and just correct that just before we go any further? So I wrote an original delegation, then saw the minutes and realised I was going to change it, so I wrote another on-table one which I submitted, which we got in here, and we didn't go into the cost there, but prior to the meeting, in the discussion, I remembered that I wanted to, and I verbally did bring it up, so there was a discussion on that. So,
Okay.
And what actually happened was I relayed my personal story, how much I cost. One of the other board members disputed that amount, of course, and said that in his sum up that I think Councillor Abbo overstated what it really cost, and he was using a simplistic view of $2,000 wood stove, chimney out the roof. But of course, I'm now not part of the committee, so I had no chance to discuss that any further. So it did get brought up, it was discussed, it wasn't debated as to whether his numbers or my numbers were accurate. So there is an opportunity, if you do want to bring that up subsequently, could refer to what they heard before, but I certainly wouldn't suggest they didn't hear that before, because people did.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I forgot to go back and have a look at what you had originally prepared, as opposed to the...
Yeah. But I actually added to my talking to the second piece.
Okay.
And I realised it was missing, but I couldn't change the typing at the time.
Right.
So I just spoke to it.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that information. Anyways, slice it. The wood stove exchange program does not provide much of an incentive for people to undertake that kind of expense, and would certainly need to be beefed up if the bylaw is passed for everyone in the Lower Mainland for the most part. With respect to education and that kind of tack on the harmful emissions that are produced as a result of burning wood, there does, I would suggest there does need to be a more concentrated effort in that respect. And I think that there's an opportunity to seek further resources and assistance from Metro in that respect. I think they would probably be amenable to that kind of direction. And as well, as a result of just looking at a lot of the research with respect to those harmful effects, the most desirable result is to have people actually converting from, rather than converting from a non-compliant wood burning appliance to a compliant one, it would be most beneficial to see people converting to non-wood burning alternatives, whether it's heat pumps or propane, electricity, or natural gas was probably the most efficient means to burn alternative fuels. And to that extent, I think that there is I have no idea what the prospects of success are in terms of lobbying Fortis on this, but I think it's another area where council could seek the assistance of Metro in pursuing that tack. And they've got a lot of information on their website. They're tied into the Clean BC website. They're talking the talk, and I think it's a good opportunity for us to ask them to walk the walk. And I think you want to say something.
Comment on that one, yes. And so myself and Councillor Bain had a conversation. I started and came and joined with Fortis BC when we were at the LGA. And about this. And the opportunity is not for a line. The opportunity is to have trucked gas. It's not liquefied, but it is slightly compressed in the same way you get it in. And there's a system where they can bring tankers in and hook them up to a system that can then feed the village. And they do this in smaller communities. So I think people are confusing and thinking that the cost effective part is to get a gas line to come from West Van. We don't have to do that. They truck it to a point.
Or they could say you could bring it in on rail.
Are you talking about like to a station almost?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'd have vaporizers and all the tanks and all the equipment. No, you don't have tanks. And all the equipment you need to pump it into, compress and pump it into the gas lines, say in the cattle pit. They bring up a tanker and they hook up a tanker to it. When the tanker's empty, or they can have multiple tankers, when the tanker's getting empty, they take it away and they drop another tanker off. So they truck it to the location, and from there it's sent by gas line. He gave us some costs and he gave us some back of the napkin numbers in that meeting, and he described a few communities, and I'd have to let them know to see what they were. It's still not, it's not simple, but it's not cost prohibitive to the orders of magnitude that putting a gas line in from another place like West Van would be.
Which I believe he said would be like $25 to $40 million.
So I thought it was only from Horseshoe Bay.
It was from Horseshoe Bay, but then they said that we would have to get Ansel Place on board, Distraction Point, Ocean Point, and then pretty much every resident of Lions Bay to commit for them to even look at it. And then gave us each a bunch of socks to take home because it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, the other point they were making is if they were to put the line in, we would have to pay 50% of the cost, which to us, last I heard, would be about $4 million.
I remember a number of 5 million, I can't remember whether that was up Ocean or all in, that's the number we were kicking around in his back.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the 40 million. But it's still not something we likely to be able to do without help. Anyway.
Thank you. Anything more on CAO?
Just in terms of opportunities to gradually get people or get dwelling units in Lions Bay compliant, there's an opportunity to utilize new measures under the Building Act, which allows for us to require new buildings and renovations to include heating sources that are compliant, or whether they're wood burning compliant or just alternative, ideally alternative sources of heat. So that's something that we could pursue through a new building bylaw. In terms of options, there's the options really are, pursue the exemption through reconsideration. Alternatively, the other option would be to seek a deferred applicability of the Metro bylaw for a period of time of suggested perhaps 7 years, as 2032 would be when the Energy Step Code is scheduled to be fully implemented. So instead of 2025 is what the bylaw is presently going to say, I think. And in the meantime, pursue more education and perhaps find ways to create more incentives or call upon government to increase the benefits available under the wood stove exchange program. I thought lobby Fortis, but maybe that's something that's a little more challenging than I thought. As I said, gradually introduce or gradually get all appliances compliant through a new wood burning bylaw or through a new building bylaw. So that's basically what I've got here in the report. And
If I could go from here, and this is where it gets really serious. So if you could go to page 59 of 106 on from the middle on down. So with the extensive conversations that I've had with the Metro liaison, which is Mr. Kwan, Roger, we'll call him that. Peter's also dealt extensively with the CAO, which is Jerry, I can never say his last name, and Neil Carley, who's in the chain of command. I'll start by saying that, again, couching what Peter had to say with being neutral in my comments, the Metro wants to control the situation from an administrative standpoint. They would prefer that, in our original discussions a month and a half ago, they would have preferred that we not ask that the motion be called. That was the split vote. And that they would come back and Lions Bay would find a way to get in. It was all very vague, and it's ultimately it's the directors, my colleagues that sit around the table make the decision on this. So it's not the Metro staff that make this decision, but that's what they were pitching. So to what you have in front of us, and I'll go through the options, and CAO to John, please correct me if you think I'm wrong. So the first option is to pursue reconsideration of the CAC vote in order to direct Metro staff to exempt Lions Bay. So that is the motion. It started with asking for the exemption. That was a tie vote, which is a defeated vote. It then went to exclude Lions Bay, and that is what is in play now, regardless of how it got there. So the director of Bowen Island has agreed that he would, because only people who voted for it can ask that it be reconsidered, or the chair, and that's unlikely. He would ask that the motion would be reconsidered, and I will second, and now we're back in play again. So what does that mean? We're back in play. My recommendation to council is if we do nothing and just say, well, the vote didn't go our way and we're bringing it back again and nothing has changed, we'd just like to be exempted. I think we're going to get the same results. I think that it was split 6-6. There were 2 people absent. I know that one person that voted for us will not be there. One of the people that was not there would be strongly supportive to us. So my fear would be that we end up 6-6 again, or 7-7 again. And that means it's a tie vote, and that means we're not exempt, we're nothing. So I would suggest that is not the course of action to take. The next one is seek an exemption from the proposed bylaw when it eventually goes to the board. The Climate Action Committee is a committee. It works with the Metro staff. They propose bylaws, they do reports, and they provide recommendations. These go to the Metro Board, which I sit on, which is the directors of the Metro, and that's the committees and their representatives. So it will come as part of the consent agenda as one of the motions. If I pulled it out of the consent agenda and said to all of my colleagues, I said Lions Bay is, and I condense it to within about a 45-second chat, I've got all these mayors that don't know what we're talking about. And it's going to come odd to them. And I can't lobby mayors and councillors from 23 different communities. So that's not likely to happen. So I think that out of that kerfuffle, the thing that would resonate with the mayors is that if they had a resident in their community that was, that since they don't know about this yet, that is using a wood burning apparatus and it may cost them somewhere between $9,000 and $12,000, their ears are going to perk up pretty quick. This is the same group of mayors that complained about a $35 water increase in the last bill. So I don't recommend that as our last ditch effort either, because the room is too big. The meeting has a tumultuous agenda that they want to get through. So this is just a small piece. So I would, should it come to that, I will do that anyhow as our last ditch effort. I think the third option is the one that best resonates, and that is that if I was to put it forward to the CAC, is that Lions Bay seeks deferred applicability of the proposed bylaw for a period of 7 years, that is the 2025 plus 7 years equals 232. And it goes in line with what CAO DeJong has recommended, that we do this. We would offer that we would be the guinea pig for Metro. We have a wood burning apparatus community. You can come in, try your marketing, think about swap programs, have a profile. Substantially, we would offer them on the peripheral side that they get to practice off Broadway before they go blow up to some of the other big communities. And the other piece on this is that my strong sense, and Councillor Abbott could weigh in here too, a 6-6 vote last time, some of the members were teetering on the edge, and a couple of them were teetering on the edge, and they were looking for an olive branch that they could accept that would give Lions Bay the exemption. But I was not empowered, and even when they grilled Councillor Abbott to give me something, he was not empowered either. So I think that by doing a small exemption of the extra 7 years, plus endeavoring to work with Metro, will probably win us a vote or two if it's close. I think our opportunity is compelling. When the power goes out because hydro does stuff, we have no alternate source of power. People believe what they believe. If they believe that Metro is going to take away our wood burning apparatus, it's simply not true, but it's what they think. So I think that this would be the preferred course of action. And then I would also spin it a little bit with item number 4 as well. And that we would suggest, an expanded swap program, discussion with Fortis and a bunch of the other stuff. I think for the people who are doing the voting, which is the directors, I believe this will resonate. I believe we will carry the day. I also know that having talked to Roger Kwan beforehand, and he has now got a copy of this, and he'll know where council's decision is tomorrow morning when I email him. He would also be supportive of this as it stands to try and make this work for Lions Bay. So that would be my recommendation, but there is a downside to what we're proposing here. And I think I'll hand this back to you, Peter, that you've, I think in the front part of your stuff, that actually you and I have been trading so many emails, and this might have been one of our emails back and forth, that the Metro executive are not too keen on us calling the motion.
Well, I think that if this, as you've described, this direction is pursued, then I would suggest that on Friday at the CAC meeting this Friday, that the motion be put by the director from Bowen Island, and that you then move to postpone, move to postpone the motion to a specific date and time, namely
The following meeting.
the next meeting. The problem is that procedurally, the motion has to be brought at the next meeting after the previous meeting for reconsideration. So it has to be brought at the January meeting. It can't simply be agreed to be deferred until February. So if it's called and then you make a motion to postpone it to the February meeting after consideration of the draft bylaw and the direction requested by Lions Bay, then you'll know at that point in time what that looks like, and if it's not a good result, then we call the motion, and if it's, but I would expect, as you would, you know, from the conversations that I've had, that this direction, like you say, would be supported by Metro staff and hopefully by the directors who sit on the committee.
Well, I believe yes, and I think the reason I brought this up and asked Peter to mention this is that the choices are to force it on Friday and just not have it go to the Metro staff for analysis, but go right to the decision makers. And this is the kind of the power game we're facing here.
Can I just hypothesize for a little minute? So if it goes what happened, what didn't happen last time, if it went 6-6, it's defeated. The next motion that was called by the chair, she called for the opposite. If that had been voted correctly, it would have been 6-6, it would have been defeated.
It would have been defeated.
Now Metro has a problem, because now Metro, forget about Lions Bay, Metro doesn't have a bylaw for anyone, right? So they have to get, what's the next option now? They need an outcome, because they've got nothing they can take forward now. So what happens then?
That would have been perfect when I asked her, had the chair reconsidered the motion then. But she chose not to.
The long and short of it is that you're not going to, you know, what we do isn't going to stymie Metro from working on a bylaw. They'll still
work on the bylaw, sure.
They'll still be able to bring forward a bylaw.
At that moment, what do they do next in the meeting? Do they just decide to send it back to staff? Or
There's more to the bylaw than whether or not Lions Bay gets an exemption. So they would work on all aspects of the bylaw and probably have, you know, a provision with, a provision without. And if there's no change in the dynamic at the committee level, then the board would have to decide, I suggest. You know, ultimately somebody has to make a decision. So if there's no consensus or whether by way of agreement or otherwise by vote, then the board will have to do something to move the needle. So
yeah, that's what I'm suggesting. So that, you know, the needle might have been moved by, I don't know, grain farming for certain areas or something.
I think that at one point, as Mayor McLaughlin alluded to, that, you know, trying to force the question simply to be called again without trying to come to some sort of an agreement on a way forward over time is probably not going to result in a good result in the long term. I think that it's better to find a way to collaboratively work things out and ultimately to work towards a desired result. And the desired result ultimately is to have cleaner air, safer for everybody, and eventually, you know, people are going to need to look at having compliant appliances, so whether they're wood burning or otherwise. And I think that working towards, you know, that result with the assistance of Metro instead of trying to butt heads with Metro on it, is probably a better way to go in the long term for the residents of Lions Bay.
To be fair, the conversations that the CAO has had with their executive and the ones I've had as the chair and the other, I think is CAO said there were some very tense moments during these conversations. I mean, for us, or for me on Friday, I want to win for Lions Bay and I don't want to lose, because losing is just, it's not going to be good for us because the public's going to perceive what they do. And I think as the CAO has said, ultimately we do want the same aim. It would have been fine if we had an exemption and could have done this on our own time. That's been taken out of our hands, so we have to regroup and rethink. And my recommendation, I mean, we can discuss this some more, but I'll put the recommendation forward as I did, which I will now, which is on page 59. The desired option is number 3 and number 4. And then I think Peter's term was, should, as I expect this will come at the CAC meeting. So that is my motion. Can I have a seconder on that? And then we'll go to this, thank you. And then we'll go to the discussion, which is this. I have thought hard on this and I'm swallowing, and I will accept Peter's pressured advice from the Metro executive that we will, I will second the motion, but ask that it stayed with Metro to provide the report the following CAC meeting. Since they know what they've got, and I haven't had a phone call since I sent it earlier today, I suspect that it will be supported, and that's the olive branch that the other members are looking for. It's hard to, unless it's extremely offensive to, for the directors to object to a Metro staff recommendation. Any other discussion on this? Shoot.
You know, even with this horizon, 12-year horizon, you're still signing people up in today's day to put away $100 a month for the next 12 years to be able to afford that. It's really punitive. I don't think this is thought out in just how expensive these replacements can be, depending on what kind of house they are.
I think that's the bigger fight, Councillor Barmier, for, as I've said to the other directors who I've met one-on-one over the last week, is that when this hits the mayor's committee, I'm not so sure that this is going to fly. So I'm fighting for Lions Bay right now. This is what I would put forward. When it comes to the mayor's and the other direction and the numbers start rattling out, I'm not so sure it's going to pass.
Well, I guess, just one other to your point is the counter point to what you're saying is that instead of spending that kind of money to convert an appliance that is still going to put out a harmful substance, get rid of it. Put in a propane fireplace. Put in a heat pump.
But a heat pump has to be ran off hydro. And if you don't have plumbed in propane, that has got to be as much as changing your wood appliance. I have a wood appliance, it's good. But even to replace the pipe alone was gonna cost us 10 grand.
The other thing is you can also get a wood pellet stove that vents out the back wall instead of going through a roof.
But the pellets still need to be ran off electricity, which does not. Some of them, yeah, they do. And then that negates power outages.
Well, in terms of the feed into the system?
Yeah. So then you're inefficiently running something, you're not getting any heat.
Propane is the other alternative, and I know it's more expensive than natural gas. I have it myself, and I don't like the size of my bills, but...
Well, I'm just thinking of plumbing in propane as well.
Well, you don't have to have it plumbed through the community. You just have a tank and
through your
you're...
own home though.
Yeah.
So then you're tearing out walls and putting in, that is not an option for many people. If you're doing a renovation to a certain extent, if we're gonna make you bring up to code all these other things, then that's a different scenario. but somebody who's had a house here for 45
Right.
years.
I actually, even with me with a renovation, I mean, I did have Vaglio come out and they said, well, this 20-foot fireplace with all this rock stuff, that's gonna come
Yeah.
down, don't you? And I go, no. Okay, so I think we get the whole idea here. I mean, especially with two of the councillors here are about to embark on the journey of a lifetime with climate action as one of their main things. I mean, you can't have it both, not the two of you, all of us can't have it both ways. I believe we are a green community, but we're gonna hide our head in the sand on this one.
I don't think it's hiding your head in the sand. I think that this is, if you're having a new build or a renovation, then you bring it up to today's codes, but there is a grandfather policy for a reason. So, and if we were living in West Van and we all had natural gas, then this would be
I
a
agree.
moot point. But we don't, and it is not reasonable to ask somebody to spend
Well,
$5,000 to $15,000
The metro
plus.
directors have already decided that for you.
I'm not sure where they, anyways.
No, let's,
They haven't yet, though.
okay, I think we're drifting away here. Councillor Abbott, I'm gonna call you as the last one.
Okay, so these things are interconnected. So we're talking about changing our building code, therefore anyone that does buy a new property or get a new build is then going to have to comply. So anyone does a major renovation. Those are times when people have money. It's no different than septics. I think probably most of us are on septics that are old, but they're functional. We know if we sell our house, someone's doing an inspection, you're pumping 50k into the property. And the new owner's doing it or you're doing it in order to sell it. So those make it, because there's always money when you change properties. That's when the money flows, right? That's when people have enough money where this becomes a drop in the ocean. Well, not a drop in the ocean, but becomes achievable. So I do think those two are connected in some way. I don't know how we can, the grandfathering as well as the extension. So, extending it for another 7 years, or grandfathering it where over time, they all disappear because at some point, everyone has to do renovation. We haven't connected them, but I kind of feel there might be something there that's my first thought. I'm still not quite clear on how we see this play out if you go with option 3 as opposed to option 1.
Option 3 is the olive branch. If we do option 1 again, it's just a recount whether line space completely exempted.
Okay, so in option 1 you weren't going to offer anything.
I'm not, that is a sure loss.
Well, it's probably a tie again.
It's a tie, but,
It's a same thing. Okay. All right. I just thought, tie then got us to the point we needed to break the standard. And then so, Peter, so as soon as this is tabled, you're suggesting that the mayor then propose that it be postponed to the following meeting. Is that to give us
no,
time?
our work is done. Our work is done. Let the Metro
It's-
staff do the work.
It's basically to allow them to work.
Oh,
Yes.
to our metro staff, so we don't get to have other
No.
input.
We're done. I've made it clear that we don't have an army of people like Metro does to churn stuff out.
Okay, so this is, so you just trying to give metro staff time to hopefully they take that as favourable, okay.
Well, two reasons, two things. One, we're going to see off, the other directors will see this tomorrow. I mean, so far just the Metro staff has, and the 4 that I have phoned and told what's about to occur. So the rest of them will done. So I've done my lobbying beforehand and probably phoned most of them beforehand, and I expect some vote changing on this one. So I think that this is the sort of thing that will get us to the next step. And if Metro is supportive, although I did look at their, Councillor Abbott, I did look at the meeting that you attended to, they actually didn't make a recommendation. They just left it out as options. So, I mean, I'm fine with the level playing field because it gives us another opportunity to pitch this. But basically, we need another opportunity, and this is the only way to get it. So that's why I said it's fairly serious, because if we get what we want, we're going to get at least 12 years. If we lose, it's not so good. But I feel as confident as I can look at every one of you that item number 3 is probably going to fly in a month from now. So, I will call a motion. All in favor of the recommendation? That would be 1, that would be 2, unless you're combing your hair.
No, you know the players, you know what the probability is, I just don't think, so what you're saying is that if this does not fly, by the time we get to the mayor's committee, there's another.
There's another chance.
Okay, then I will.
But in 1 month's time, if this came back, we don't have a chance to present anything further. It's based on what we feel that staff are going to do based on what we read.
They would, if I understand this correctly from the CAO, staff comes forward with their report. We have our consideration of the motion in advance. If I've got that correct? It comes forward, let's presume that, I guess, this catch-22, let's use your CAO hat for a second, so I can probably initiate and say I'd be in favor of this, or I could reconsider the motion and support that. How would I get to the point where we need to go?
So with this information in hand, they will go away and hopefully come back saying, yes, we support what Lions Bay has suggested, and the committee will vote on the amended version of the bylaw in February. In January, all they're gonna do is just push it off, but it just gives them time to come back with something.
The reason for my question was I'm wondering if, so the problem with this committee is if you want to do a delegation to present something, you have to have a crystal ball, because you have to submit your delegation before they put the agenda out. And I wasn't there, I heard everyone else complaining about them when they were there as well. Get up and say, well, I didn't know what you were going to say, so that's why I put a delegation in. But I was wondering, did it make sense then? So you won't see their recommendation if you want to present something, but I'm wondering, do we want to present something? I put my hand up, but maybe it's someone else, I don't know. Maybe a fresh face is different. Try present something to support our argument before they vote. It's kind of where I was going. But you have to kind of do that with some speculation of what their recommendation is, because you have to give 7 business days, notice for a delegation. They only publish the meeting agenda 1 week before the meeting.
Yeah, you're right, Councillor, there's no chance for you.
No different than ours. We publish our agenda after, you have to put in your delegation request prior to the agenda being finalized for it to be on the agenda. So.
Well, I
The
think
delegation request can
Councillor Abbott's
be
right,
on
they make
the
you go through all this paperwork, like what are you going to talk about and blah, blah, blah. So.
I mean, we could plan on having, put together a delegation request and basically touching on the direction that Lions Bay is offering to go, in case the report comes out and says it's not.
And then if there's a
favourable.
positive outcome, then get up there and say, thank you for your support, it sounds great, put some fluff in it and sit down and then stir the pot, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay. All right, I believe we are unanimous on this motion. Thank you very much. I'll keep you posted as we go. It's just taking a lot of time. Let's just call it that. Okay. All right, regrettably, CFO, we're after 9 o'clock.
Oh, it's fine. Just trying to keep it mobile.
Which brings us to the CSMTFA committee.
He's doing it, forgotten about that. Okay. So we had a meeting last week, a few actions. And I just want to go through them quickly. I'm not trying to especially ask for decisions, but certainly some interim advice. So the first action is just procedure for review of 2 vacancies. One confirmed and one purely because the person hasn't responded, so I'd ask you to deal with that. Is this year appropriate? So Lauren hasn't come back to any of the emails, didn't come to the meeting, and we have a question of whether she doesn't technically is she a resident or not. So if someone else wants to try to reach her, fine, but I would think we have 2 vacancies, so we should go through the process.
Yep.
And the third one was there was the other person that said she wasn't going to go forward. She initially wanted to, but that was to find the time, and she's really busy, and she missed the meeting, so she asked that she was just back out. The funding thing that came up in the previous meeting by one of the members, and I got some information from CFO, thank you very much. I thought what this member was suggesting was that we raise funds, and I thought, well, if you suggested you're going to be the fundraiser, but we got to the meeting that wasn't really what he wanted to do. But he had this idea that, like they do with the other scholarships funding in the village, the Lions Bay Community Scholarship Foundation, you invest your money with Van City. They have some sort of matching program, and you wanted to explore that option. I said I don't know if that's doable. This money is in the village reserve. I don't know if we have those kind of options, but I suggested that I come forward to council and point out that that's what he wanted to do. Do you have any knowledge or opinion on that? Possibly Pam or Peter?
So just for clarification, who matches it? I'm not familiar with this.
Yes, it's only Van City does.
Reading it, it's Van City just
It's
matches.
part of the grant community support program. They, I don't know, match dollar for dollar or what they do, but they contribute if you invest it with them. It's a community initiative they do. This is all me speaking secondhand here. I knew nothing about this to the meeting. I've done no research on my own. But
Yeah.
would we be able to do that with this money that's in municipal reserve?
Yeah, I'm not sure, like, if this is open to just other charities or if a municipality would even qualify. I wasn't aware of this, so.
So do you want to find out, or should I suggest that Rod can go forward and have a discussion with people he knows at Van City and bring it back to us? Or is there a concern that we don't want him?
No. I could probably look into it.
You can
I
look
could
into it?
contact them,
Okay.
yeah, and
Okay,
just find
contact
out.
Rod? Okay, thank you.
Sorry, you want Pam to contact Rob?
No, I'll
No.
contact Van City. I'll contact Van City directly and just find out information about the Van City Foundation and how it works.
And then you bring it back, I'll take it back to the committee.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
because
you.
like I said, it could be a simple conversation that as a village, like, we're not eligible.
Yeah, and also though, what about,
Like also-
you know, the rules that pertain to things that we can invest in, and basically
That
all
was
of our
one
funds
option.
Yeah,
are
exactly.
currently pooled and,
Right, so it's sort
Take it
of
away.
just some additional information on my list for this year is we don't actually have an investment policy, and the MFA has a really good program with investments, because through the community charter, we're very limited in what we can invest. Basically, we can't, rightly so, put any taxpayers' dollars at any risk. So you're looking at GICs and high-rate interest accounts. And in the past, it hasn't been as much of an issue because any cash I had to be very liquid. But now that we're selling property, we do have some additional funds. So the timing is right to look at that this year. And as part of that, the Curly Stewart money would be all invested together. Like, there's an advantage to just investing it all and then allocating the interest to the different reserves rather than investing small pockets of money, because the more you invest, the more you return. Like usually the GICs, the rates go up when you invest more. So that was all part of something we were going to do this year. I mean, I could still inquire about the Van City Foundation, but we are very restricted in terms of what we do with the community charter. It's just the idea of protecting taxpayers' money. We can't put it at risk at any
Yeah,
time.
I did warn you
And,
before.
yeah. But just so you know, that is coming this year. In order to invest now with the MFA, you actually have to have an investment policy, so that would be our first step. It's not, like I say, it's never been an issue before, because now we're in the idea that we have some extra money from land sales that I can invest for a longer term. Everything else before had to be very liquid in case we needed it fast.
Okay. The next action that I was given, and I'm not sure how to go about this, is a suggestion that this might be the 40th anniversary of the Curly Stewart Committee, based on when Curly Stewart was last mayor. But that's not necessarily the case. Is there any chance there's a record in the village of the first Curly Stewart Award?
I can look into that. I'm sure there must be. How deeply it's archived and as it goes
Yeah.
on, I don't know when it started.
He was mayor, he was the first mayor, so therefore he was mayor in 71.
Right.
And we believe he was around 10 years, so we're 81, which means next year would be the 40th year.
I think Mayor Burr had looked into the whole
History.
history of the fund, but I don't know that it was entirely clear, going back that far, how it came to be or exactly when. It was more focused on more recent events, but
Because I looked for a bylaw and there isn't a bylaw because the bylaw would have categorically stated when it was, and because there wasn't, it's a little harder to find.
Okay.
But could always ask our resident archivist. She might know. So we can look into it to see.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
Very much.
thank you very much, Councillor
So
Abbott.
basically, it's
Abbott
when
will,
it started is what we're looking for, the history.
Yes, there was an idea of doing a fundraising, trumpeting around the 40th
Okay.
anniversary, special.
Thank you very much for your work on this. It's dear to the hearts of the villagers. My apologies to my colleagues. I was somewhat fatigued with the wood burning bylaw that my eyes drifted down, and I jumped to the CSMTA. In fact, we were back up at reports where the mayor's next up.
just in terms of next meeting, what was your?
Sorry, I thought you said that would have to be in February? We'd have to appoint it in February? Or-
Oh, yeah, so we'll do the advertising for the vacant positions, but it will come back to council at the second meeting in February.
Yes,
So that that person is appointed to take effect March 1st. Whoever's sitting goes until the end of February.
Yes.
The new person will start March 1st. So council will appoint at the second February meeting.
Right, that's why we picked March 9th as the first opportunity after the council meeting.
Right.
The first council meeting after February the 28th.
But you've got here, first council meeting after February 28th is when new committee members can be appointed, but they'll actually be appointed before the 28th,
And they will be appointed
Yeah.
okay.
at the February 18th meeting.
So appointed effective March 1st.
Effective March 1st, yeah. Yeah.
Is that returned in the set? Because we were looking at it when we made that.
Yeah, I went back and looked at it again.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so going backwards, so mayor's report, I've got 4 items. The first one, I can't believe, I finally appear on the corporate calendar. Apparently for some time for the last 2 years, I've been using a separate calendar that nobody else can see. So I'm happy to say that if you want to go to the corporate calendar, you can now see where I am, where I'm going, and who I'm with. Piece is the infrastructure composition, and this is in reference to the passing of Jim Muttry, and CAO DeJong and I have spoken about this. There might be applicants that want to take Mr. Muttry's spot, and there's been one person that would seem to be a good fit, but they're unable to join for a period. The suggestion is that Mr. Muttry's chair be left vacant for a year. And as the CAO points out, the way our terms of reference are, it's a 50-50 split between council members and IC members. I would offer that I would technically withdraw from the IC, but as ex officio, I'm able to attend. And I think that would reduce and balance our numbers and give us an opportunity to find a replacement in due course.
Which, according to the terms of reference, would be advertised for any persons interested at that time.
At that time. Actually, I'll stop any discussion on this, but you know what I know. Okay, we're good. Next item is, and the CAO has asked me to present this to you, that we authorize staff to expend up to $100 for a small plaque to go with the piano that's going to be donated to the Broughton Hall. And it's to respect the memory of the person who gave us the piano. There we go. So I'll put that motion forward. Can I have a seconder? Any discussion? None? All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. And the last one is Councillor Abbott. That was my first horrible email today. In -6-degree weather, the 10 to 7 bus did not come. And -6 weather, the 7:40 bus did not come. At no time did TransLink send out an electronic transmission to advise that there was no buses. I can tell you that the email that I got from one of the people that I waved at, that I drove by at 7:20, was a lot nicer than I might have sent. The hardy stock that are the people of Lions Bay diligently stood there for well over an hour and a quarter. The reason for this, so in the first part, is that there were significant collisions in Highway 99 earlier this morning, and a variety of employees were unable to make it to work. That is, that the bus drivers, the transit people live far away and drive into to begin their job. So TransLink simply didn't have enough people to do the work. The shuttle at 7:40, when the bus should have left Lions Bay, was in fact at Caulfield. So it was the shift or the hour after that they got back into rotation. And I know since my wife was here late in the afternoon, they're back on schedule. And I don't know if it's snowing now, but there we go. Through the CAO and Peter, they got the answer to that. On the electronic transmission, why it wasn't sent out, we talked to the staff people and the planning people, and, they're not the IT people. They really don't have an answer. I think this afternoon, and this is the CAO's work so far, this afternoon, I think I'd pretty much had enough, because they hadn't phoned back when I called earlier, and I did ask for an answer, and I'm not sure what form of a apology I'm going to ask TransLink to do, because I know the 3 people were standing there. So I think as a very minimum, they should do something more than, gee, I'm sorry, because I said I'd be happy to invite either the transit supervisor or the planning supervisor to a coffee in Lions Bay. Of course, we'd be giving you a coffee and a thermos and asking you to stand outside the village hall for an hour and a half, just so that we could get into an even playing field. So they know that that invitation is pending. I have written once to the people that were standing there. I will send them a further update tomorrow, and I will cover it in the village update on Friday, unfortunately.
So you said 3 people, the email we got said 4.
Pardon?
You said 3 people, the email says 4.
Well,
Did you have
let's
3
check
people?
them. Let's just check before, because if there's another person, unfortunately I was driving by quickly. I didn't feel very good about that. It felt horrible when I read his email. Okay, enough of that one. So we're next on to the emergency services report on page 79. Can I have a motion to receive? Second, any questions, discussion on this one? No? Motion to receive, accepted, thank you. Resolutions, there are none. Bylaws, none. Councillor Abbott, you're second to last time for the quarter. Do us dignity and be finished in 5 minutes, please.
Okay. The first item is an invitation to
Prince George.
Invitation to Prince George. Yeah, the National Resources Forum, the action required there. Tends to go. The second one is asking for support from Alberni Packet Regional District for the childcare proposal. there's no real call to action, I would suggest this being required unless someone feels they want to. Third one is the North Shore Congress. So, do we have anyone that ever goes to these?
I think,
Sounds like something we should be at, or is it
I
not what it needs?
think Mayor Burr went once, and I think Councillor Bain, didn't you go to one of these? Did I dream that? I don't think the invitation's been out to the mayor and council. It comes every time they meet, and we just haven't gone. So, if there's somebody who wants to go,
Okay. I don't have the opportunity to.
okay?
Sounds like something that we would like to, should probably be trying to play in, I guess, if they really are what they say they are, the leaders of the North Shore, and we listed as one of the reasons. I can do it. The third one is call for nominations of the Lowland LGLA. I don't suppose anyone intends to put this out forward. It's here if you wish. The next one is the Hassan Community Forum. This is about climate emergencies, so I don't know, and I'm sure the two colleagues here have actually much more visibility on this. Now everyone else knows that it's a lot of people in these various committees are calling on the community to declare a climate emergency. It seems to be growing impetus, and lots of people are. And this notice from the Hassan Community Forum from Simons points out that so far Squamish has, Westland has, Bowen Island has, Island Trust has, Squamish Little Regional District has, Metro Area A has, and Sunshine Coast has. Sounds like you don't have to think too hard to realise we've dot in the middle that hasn't made this thing. So I would suggest when the Climate Action Committee gets together, maybe they consider this, and maybe something comes back to council, because it sounds like something we shouldn't just be ignoring.
I'm thinking that we should ask that, I think it's April 24th, is that their date for the next meeting? That goes on our corporate calendar. I'm sure we're all going to get invites, but I think it should be on the calendar for us to see if we can attend.
To the next forum.
Somebody should, yeah.
But I'm more referring to the fact, do we want to declare a climate emergency right there?
I believe the soon-to-be morphed
That's what I'm
CAC
suggesting.
is,
Okay, so you agree with that?
and I'm going to cover that in new business for a second too. Okay, thank you.
The next one's the BC Hydro Community Relations Annual Report, and I wrote, where is the report? So I didn't did we miss it? Or were you supposed to go online and look it up? I didn't read it.
I got it, and I thought I sent it in, and it should have morphed. I won't pass it to everybody, but it's just smiling faces, gardens and trees and stuff like that. But when I got the, again, that was not today's happy morning email, but when I found out that Hydro is going to be doing a routine maintenance work in the freezing cold weather, it's going to affect 400 homes. I'm going to be calling Mr. Muir tomorrow to ask him to change the date.
So what influence does he have?
Hmm?
What influence does Jeremy Muir have?
Well, I don't know what he does, but he's going to point me in the right direction.
So he's the community
Wanna ask him for
relations.
free transformer?
Senior
Manager.
community relations guy. Let's see. Already?
Okay, so I guess the
well-
report should have been an attachment, and we'll
Yeah.
find out where it got to. It wasn't here.
Maybe we'll put up with the power outage for a free transformer.
Exactly, yes.
You're killing me, Councilor, you really are. All right, come on.
Yeah,
Fine.
All right,
be careful what you ask for.
that's right. Okay, Councilor Abbott, close strong, come on.
Last one is licensed childcare spaces in Metro Vancouver. I don't believe we part of the survey or tend to sign up for it. I don't think there's an action here. I'll be honest. I dig too deep. I don't think there's any action for us. I think we're just being informed.
Okay,
Sorry, go to this. sure if we need to make an action on this, but the North Shore Congress, I mean, go with him.
Good. I think it'd be good to have a
It's
representative.
an interesting concept, and,
Okay, good. If you could give us advice on the way back, we'll let you register. Good, thanks. Mr. Luciak, I think you've done him already, Neville. Thank you. Thank you for the correspondence. One more session and you're done.
I do have one question on correspondence. And I think we kind of asked this last meeting, but I've been asked again, asking again. So correspondence from residents around the cell tower that was copied to council has not, with some exceptions, has not been in this correspondence page. It has not been attached to the agendas.
For the most part, they were encapsulated within there was a report that included the responses, if I remember correctly, it was within the body of the agenda. There was a report that included a bunch of all of the correspondence that had been received, feedback and so forth at that point in time. There was a couple of items that appeared in the correspondence section, but to the best of my knowledge, everything has appeared in an agenda, not necessarily in the correspondence section though.
I mean, is it a lot of work or too much to ask just to list them here in the next correspondence section?
They're all going to come back to you when the consultation package comes. Every single piece of correspondence is going to be.
I know I'm going to see them. I'm just asking that some of those residents have flicked to the correspondence section of the agenda and their piece wasn't there and they've asked the question. So I'm going to see them, I'm going to read them, I know that. But
those who asked why it wasn't in the correspondence section probably didn't notice that it was earlier in the agenda.
I know that, and I'm just suggesting they shouldn't need to be looking in other places. If this is where they normally expect to see it, wouldn't it be as simple as just putting it here, even if it's in twice, that they could see it in the correspondence section where they expected to see it?
If we're going to do that, I don't know what's the purpose of providing a report, an information report with all of the feedback at any given point in time, which is sort of on, on various topics we have brought forward. Here's all the feedback we got on that topic. Here's some information. This was a survey or whatever it was, right? Different things. So when it appears in the body of the agenda, I would hope that people are at least reading the agenda to see what's on the agenda, and included in that is correspondence. But if they look at the agenda and see, oh, there's that topic that I wrote about, oh, maybe I'm in there. I don't know. I mean, if you want to make the agendas fatter or the packages fatter, then we can print them twice, I suppose. But I would hope
I just
that
think if we have a communications policy that says if you send it all to all of council, it's going to be in the correspondence. This is the page.
It didn't say it's going to be in the correspondence section of the agenda. It says it's going to be on the agenda. So it'll be somewhere in the agenda. Most of the time, it's going to be in the correspondence section, but there are times when it appears in a special report that's brought on a topic.
So that would have, the cutoff for that would have been Friday?
Thursday at noon.
So Ruth Simon's email did not make the cut, or would have made the cut?
Which one?
She
Late
had a
last-
lot of.
late last week.
Was late last week? Was it after noon on Thursday?
There's two that came in late last
It
week.
was Thursday.
Okay, so maybe it didn't make the cut, but there were, though I was expecting to see those, or I was anticipating seeing those, I'm not sure if they on paper made the cut, I guess. There's two emails that stood out at the end of last week that I thought would be discussed.
I know that,
So
I
maybe
guess
they'll-
my focus was on the fact that she was writing to SBA with respect to her first letter that she wrote. And I know that SBA was addressing the comments that she made, complaining about the response that she had to the first letter. So
think it was
I
council.
confess to not remembering who was copied on
I think all the
that.
councils.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah.
So should anything that goes to all of council then be included in?
I think that's not
Generally
Councillor Abbott's
speaking,
point.
generally speaking, yes. There are provisions in the correspondence policy that provide exceptions with respect to that. And something like this, where we've got an extensive public consultation that is being undertaken by a third party, and we've tried to make sure that that information was showing up in agendas along the way, in one way or another, and knowing as well ultimately that all of that information is coming back in a summary report at the end of the day. It's a little different from what we normally have, and we've tried to accommodate it as best we could, or as best as we saw fit, and whether it was in the correspondence section or whether it was in an information report, we've tried to make sure that those comments are coming forward as they've been produced. And I know that a couple of times I've missed correspondence, and apologize publicly for that. And so I'm not sure in terms of the process, it's pretty much done now. As of today's date, I think was the final day for any follow-up responses on anybody who was back and forth. And I think that it'll be not too much longer before they do the wrap-up, and it all comes forward on either the 28th or the 4th.
If the concern is, still trying, if the concern is about the thickness of the binder, I'm not suggesting we kill any more trees to produce paper, and it is somewhere else, it could be listed here, it could be, everyone else other than us that sees this
Or
only
just cross-reference.
only sees it electronically. So there's a cross-reference, and it's in there, it's electronic. They are only looking at the electronic version, we're not printing any more paper.
Mm.
Is that
Right. Right. Yeah, could look at.
I don't feel
cross-referencing
people,
it.
it's the onus of people to dig too far. They should find things easily. That's good communication.
But none of the correspondence between SBA and whoever is concerned made it.
Some of it has. It's been a little hit and miss
It's-
this few weeks.
Yeah. How about we leave this topic at that? We are now concluded with the SBA stuff, which is what most of these letters are about. Certainly I believe council's expectation is that if any resident writes in and the majority of council are copied, it goes into the correspondence section, period,
Well, unless there's an exception. As
which
provided in
would
the
be
correspondence policy.
unusual.
Yeah, not normal, yeah.
Okay, all right. Are you fine with that, Councillor Abbott?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, you have to take that answer home. All right, and that concludes correspondence. Thank you very much. And just as new business, which I didn't put in the agenda, but I will squeak this before we go to closed, is for the two councillors on the CAC. This is your program. I would suggest you book your time with the CAO to get yourself off the ground, and that's all I'm going to say on that. Thank you. Public questions and comments? I'm staring at you. No, there being none. Good. All right, we will go to the closed, which I think if I've got this right. The topics for discussion in the absence of the public this evening are disposition of property, that the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality, and B, legal advice, and that the meeting be closed to the public on the basis of matters to be considered under the following sections of the Community Charter 91. I'm not going to read everything. 1E, I, N, and add 91C, which is employee relations. And council does not anticipate reconvening the opening meeting for any purpose other than to adjourn the meeting and report out if applicable. Can I have a motion in support of that? I'll put it forward. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And those of you who shouldn't be here have already left. And Carol? Say good night, Alice. Good. Thank you very much, Carol. We are live at 10:15 and out the door in a minute. We've come back from our in-camera session, and the piece that would be of the topics that we discussed, the item that we are reporting out on is that one of the items we discussed was the corporate strategic planning and 2020 priority setting, of which items were of closed content. So beyond that, nothing more to report. And can I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you. All in favor? Good, and we are done. Thank you, Carol. Good evening.
Anybody have a line in there?